My name is Leon, and for nearly 15 years I'd been married to Camilla. We met in Queens back when we were young and stupid, at a mutual friend's barbecue on a hot summer day. She had flour in her hair from baking all morning, and she laughed at my terrible chemistry jokes. We fell hard for each other, in that reckless way people do when they're in their 20s and think love conquers everything. Within 2 years, we were married. Within 4, we had our first child. I worked as a chemist at a pharmaceutical company in Manhattan, spending my days in a sterile lab coat, analyzing compounds and running tests that most people would find incredibly boring. But I loved it, the precision, the logic, the way everything followed rules that made sense. Camilla had turned her passion for baking into a thriving business, making custom cakes and pastries for wealthy clients across the city. She worked from our apartment kitchen, transforming it into a magical space filled with the scent of vanilla and chocolate. Her creations were works of art, towering wedding cakes, intricate birthday designs, corporate logos rendered in fondant and buttercream. We had 2 kids, Chelsea, our daughter in middle school, sharp and perceptive beyond her 13 years, and our son in elementary school, still young enough to believe his parents were superheroes. We lived in a decent 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of Queens, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and kids still played in the streets during summer. On paper, we had everything. The American dream, right there in our modest apartment with its creaky floors and temperamental heating system. Winter in New York that year was brutal, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes you appreciate the warmth of home even more. Snow fell in heavy sheets, turning the city into a frozen landscape. The subway commutes became exercises in endurance. But I didn't mind it much. Winter meant coming home to warm lights, hot coffee, and the smell of whatever Camilla was baking for her next order. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself as I noticed Camilla becoming more distant. It started so small that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Little things that didn't quite fit the pattern of our life together. She'd smile at her phone, not the casual glance we all do, but a genuine, secret smile that lit up her face in a way I hadn't seen in years. Then she'd quickly put it away when I entered the room, her expression shifting to something neutral, almost blank. She began taking calls in the other room, speaking in hushed tones that would stop abruptly if I walked by. I'd hear her laugh, that musical sound I'd fallen in love with, but when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd say it was just a client or her sister. Her deliveries started taking longer and longer. What used to be 2-hour trips stretched into 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours. She'd come home flushed, energized in a way that seemed wrong for someone who'd supposedly spent hours driving around the city. When I'd ask about her day, her answers became vague, almost rehearsed. Oh, the usual. Traffic was terrible. Client was picky. The details that used to fill our dinner conversations, funny stories about bridezillas or impossible cake requests, dried up. She stopped sharing, stopped letting me into her world. I told myself she was just stressed. The holiday season was always her busiest time. January orders were piling up, New Year's parties, corporate events, winter weddings. She was probably exhausted, overwhelmed. That's what I wanted to believe, what I needed to believe to keep my world intact. But deep down, in that place where we hide truths we're not ready to face, I knew something was very wrong. I'm not proud of what I did next, but curiosity and suspicion are a dangerous combination, especially when mixed with fear and the cold realization that your life might be built on lies. One evening while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand. My hands were shaking. I'd never done this before. We'd always had trust, or at least what I thought was trust. The water was running, steam seeping out from under the bathroom door. I had maybe 5 minutes. She'd changed her passcode. That alone told me everything I needed to know, but I had to see for myself. We'd always known each other's codes. It was one of those small intimacies of marriage, the complete access, the total transparency. Her changing it was like locking a door that had always been open. I tried our anniversary, 0724. Nothing. The kids' birthdays, both of them. Nothing. Our address. Her mother's birthday. Each failed attempt made my heart pound harder. Then, almost as a joke, almost hoping I'd be wrong, I tried a date I remembered from years ago. Matthew's birthday, her ex-boyfriend from before we met. 0315. It worked. My stomach dropped like I'd just fallen from a great height. Why would she use his birthday? Why would she even remember it after all these years? The messages I found were mostly deleted, but anyone who knows anything about phones knows that deleted doesn't always mean gone. The conversation threads were there, but with huge gaps, entire days of messages just missing. I could see the timestamps where messages should have been, like a book with pages torn out. The remaining texts were carefully curated to look innocent, probably left there deliberately in case I ever looked. Great catching up with you last week. Let me know when you're free again. Thursday works perfect for me. But the pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. They'd been talking for months, since early October. The Thursday references appeared over and over. My mind flashed back to all those Thursday deliveries that took half the day. I heard the water shut off. I quickly put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, screen down, just as she'd left it. When she came out wrapped in a towel, humming some tune, I was sitting on the bed pretending to read something on my own phone. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing something in my expression. "Yeah, just work stuff," I lied. "Long day tomorrow." That night I barely slept. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe beside me, this woman I thought I knew completely, wondering who she really was. Wondering how long she'd been lying to me. Wondering what else I didn't know. I needed proof. Real, concrete proof. Not just deleted messages and suspicious patterns, but evidence that couldn't be explained away or dismissed. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I asked my buddy Hank for help. Hank and I went back to college. We'd been lab partners in organic chemistry, and I'd basically carried him through the class when he was struggling. He'd always said he owed me one. Now he worked in IT security for a tech company in Manhattan, dealing with digital surveillance and data protection. If anyone could help me figure out what was really going on, it was Hank. We met at our usual dive bar in Queens on a Tuesday night. The place was nearly empty, just a few regulars watching a basketball game on the ancient TV above the bar. I ordered whiskey instead of my usual beer. Hank noticed. "That bad?" he asked. I didn't tell him everything at first. Just that I suspected something was off with Camilla, that I needed to know if she was really going where she said she was going. That I needed someone to check, to follow her, just once, just to prove I was either crazy or right. Hank studied me for a long moment. "You sure you want to know, man? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss." I thought about that. Thought about just going home, forgetting the phone, the passcode, the deleted messages. Going back to the comfortable lie of my marriage. But I couldn't unknow what I'd already discovered. "I have to know," I replied. "I have to know the truth." He nodded slowly. "Okay. When?" "Thursday. She's got a delivery in Brooklyn. At least, that's what she'll tell me." The following Thursday morning felt surreal, like I was moving through someone else's life. I got up, made coffee, helped get the kids ready for school. Camilla was already in the kitchen, decorating a 3-tier cake with delicate sugar flowers. It was beautiful, one of her best works. She was humming again, that same tune from the other night. "Big delivery today?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Huge," she said, piping tiny details onto a fondant rose. "Corporate event in Brooklyn. They're paying premium for rush delivery. Should take most of the afternoon." She looked up and smiled at me. That smile I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. For a moment, I wanted to stop everything, to tell Hank to forget it, to just believe her. She kissed me goodbye at 11, told me she loved me, grabbed the cake box, and headed out. I watched from the window as she loaded everything into her car. Then she drove away, and I picked up my phone to text Hank. "She's on the move." I went to work, but I couldn't focus on anything. I sat in my lab, staring at test tubes and beakers, my phone on the counter beside me, waiting. Every notification made my heart jump. At 12:47, Hank's first message came through. "She's not heading to Brooklyn. She's on the Long Island Expressway going east." East. Away from Brooklyn. Toward the Hamptons. More messages followed over the next hour. Updates on her location, which exit she took, which roads she turned onto. Then at 2:15, "She's at a rental property. High-end villa. Sending you the address." A pin dropped on my map. Southampton. A 2-hour drive from Queens. The address led to a luxury rental villa, the kind that went for thousands per week. At 3:30, another message. Second car just arrived. Then a photo. A silver BMW pulling into the driveway. A man getting out, tall, well-dressed, confident stride. Even from a distance, even after 15 years, I recognized Matthew from old photos I'd seen in Camilla's college albums. He looked successful, polished. A real estate agent, I remembered her mentioning once, years ago when someone asked about her ex. He'd done well for himself apparently. They stayed there for 4 hours. For hours while I sat in my lab, staring at my phone, while my hands shook so badly I had to excuse myself from a meeting. For hours, while my world disintegrated, I imagined what they were doing in that villa. I imagined her laughing with him, touching him, doing things with him that she hadn't done with me in months. I felt sick. At 7:15 movement. She's leaving. Heading back west. He's staying. Of course he was staying. Why not? It was probably his listing. Empty villa, no one to disturb them. Perfect for an affair. When I got home that evening, Camilla was already there, cheerful, asking about my day while stirring pasta sauce on the stove. She'd changed clothes. The outfit she'd left in was nowhere to be seen. Her hair was slightly damp, freshly washed. "How was Brooklyn?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though everything in me wanted to scream. "Oh my God, exhausting," she said, rolling her eyes dramatically. The client was so demanding. Wanted everything absolutely perfect. I swear I spent an extra hour just adjusting the placement of sugar flowers, because she didn't like the original arrangement. You know how these corporate types are. The lie rolled off her tongue so easily, so naturally, with such specific details. This wasn't her first time. She'd been practicing these lies, perfecting them, making them believable. I watched her lie to my face while serving me dinner, and something inside me went cold and hard. This was the woman I'd built my life with, the mother of my children, and I didn't know her at all. I didn't confront her that night, or the next week. I needed to understand the full scope of this betrayal, to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made any moves. Hank continued watching. I felt guilty about it, the surveillance, the secrecy, the invasion of privacy. But she'd invaded our marriage first, hadn't she? She'd broken our trust, broken our vows. I was just finding out the extent of the damage. The pattern became crystal clear over the next few weeks. Every Thursday, like clockwork. Sometimes they'd use the same villa in Southampton. Sometimes different properties, a beach house in the Hamptons, a condo in Montauk, a converted barn in East Hampton. Always luxury rentals, always empty, always for the entire afternoon. Matthew's job as a real estate agent apparently gave him access to vacant rental properties between bookings. Keys, codes, complete privacy. It was almost genius in its simplicity. I started noticing other things too, now that I knew what to look for. The expensive lingerie that appeared in her drawer, nothing she'd wear for me. The new perfume, different from what she'd worn for years. The way she'd started working out more, spending extra time on her appearance before her Thursday deliveries. Our intimate life had stopped almost completely. She was always too tired, too stressed, too busy. Now I knew why. She was saving her energy for him. I documented everything. Took screenshots of her calendar with its vague Brooklyn delivery, entries every Thursday. Saved Hank's photos and location data. Checked our credit card statements and found charges I didn't recognize. Boutique shopping, a fancy restaurant in Southampton where she'd supposedly never been, a wine shop near one of the rental properties. I became someone I didn't recognize. A detective in my own marriage, gathering evidence like I was building a case. Which I realized I was. Then came the pregnancy test. It was a Saturday morning in late January. Camilla had gone out early for supplies. Another lie, probably another meeting with Matthew on a non-Thursday for variety. I was cleaning the bathroom, something I'd taken over doing because she was too busy with work. The test was buried under tissues in the small trash can beside the toilet. She'd tried to hide it, but not well enough. Maybe she'd been careless, or maybe she'd wanted me to find it. Either way, there it was. Positive. I stood there holding it, and for just a split second, one brief, stupid second, I felt joy. A baby. Another child. A new beginning for our family. Then reality crashed in like ice water. We hadn't been intimate in nearly 2 months. Before that, maybe once or twice in the previous month. The timeline was impossible. This wasn't my baby. This was Matthew's baby. Growing inside my wife's body. The ultimate betrayal. I sat down on the bathroom floor, still holding the test, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart, that would imply sudden pain. This was more like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Everything I'd built, everything I'd believed in, coming down piece by piece. How long had she known? Was she planning to pass it off as mine? Would she have let me raise another man's child, believing it was ours? When she came home an hour later, I was waiting at the kitchen table. The pregnancy test sat in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. She froze in the doorway, bag still in her hands. Her face went through a series of expressions, shock, fear, calculation. I watched her mind work, trying to figure out what to say, what lie might still work. Leon, she started. Don't, I said quietly. Don't lie to me anymore. I know everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Camilla slowly set down her bags, her movements careful, deliberate. She was buying time, I realized, trying to figure out her next move. I can explain, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then explain. Explain how you're pregnant when we haven't been together in months. Explain the Thursdays in the Hamptons. Explain Matthew. Her face went pale at his name. How did you? I know everything, Camilla. Every villa, every lie, every Thursday since October. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That I'd just accept your excuses forever? She sank into a chair across from me, and then the tears started. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Those tears had worked on me for 15 years. Every argument, every disappointment, every time she wanted something. Not anymore. It's yours, she tried. It could be yours. We did back in November. We were together once in November. Once in 2 months. The math doesn't work, and we both know it. She broke then, truly broke. The tears became sobs, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I never meant for any of this to happen. Never meant for it to happen? I felt anger rising, finally breaking through the numbness. You didn't accidentally end up in bed with your ex-boyfriend every Thursday for 3 months. You didn't accidentally get pregnant. These were choices, Camilla. Every single one of them was a choice you made. You don't understand, she said, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. Matthew and I, we ran into each other at a coffee shop in October. We started talking, and all these old feelings came back. He told me he'd never stop thinking about me, that letting me go was the biggest mistake of his life. I felt alive again for the first time in years. So this is my fault. I made you feel dead, so you had to find life with someone else. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Explain to me how I'm supposed to understand this. Explain how you justified lying to me every week, sneaking off to luxury villas, getting pregnant with another man's child while I'm home taking care of our kids and thinking my wife is building her business. She had no answer. What answer could there be? Does he know? I asked. About the baby? She nodded miserably. I told him last week. And what does he want? He wants me to leave you. He wants us to be together, to raise the baby together. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course he does. Let me guess, he's been pushing you to leave me for months, hasn't he? Making promises about your future together? Her silence was confirmation. Are you going to? I asked. Leave me for him? I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what I want anymore. I love him, Leon. I really do. But I love you too. And the kids. Don't bring the kids into this. Don't you dare use them as an excuse. I'm not. I'm just saying it's complicated. I have feelings for both of you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But you did hurt people. You hurt me. You're going to hurt our children. You've already hurt them. They know something's wrong. Chelsea asked me last week if we're getting divorced. Camilla's face crumpled. Oh God. I never wanted them to know. What did you think would happen? That you'd keep this secret forever? That you'd have this baby and I'd just accept it as mine? I don't know what I thought, she screamed suddenly. I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to feel something again. Is that so wrong? To want to feel wanted, to feel passionate, to feel like more than just a wife and mother and business owner. Her words hit me like physical blows. So I didn't make you feel wanted? 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, building a life together. None of that made you feel wanted. You don't understand, she said again, quieter now. You're always so logical, so steady. Everything is chemistry and reason with you. Sometimes I wanted chaos. I wanted someone to look at me like I was the only woman in the world, not just a partner in a well-functioning household. And Matthew made you feel that way. Yes, she admitted. He made me feel beautiful, desired, young again. I stared at this woman across from me, and I finally understood. This wasn't about me failing as a husband. This was about her, about whatever was missing inside her that neither I nor Matthew could fill. She was chasing a feeling, an illusion, and destroying everything real in her life to catch it. What do you want to do about the pregnancy? I asked. She looked down at her hands. I'm going to end it. Does Matthew know? Not yet. But it's my decision. I can't have this baby. Not now. Not like this. When? Next week. I have an appointment. I nodded slowly. Part of me, the part that still loved her, that remembered who we used to be, felt sad about that. A life ending before it began. But another part of me, the part that was learning to survive this, felt relief. One less complication. One less permanent connection between her and Matthew. I want a divorce, I said. Her head snapped up. What? You heard me. I want a divorce. This marriage is over, Camilla. But we can work through this. Couples survive affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, You just told me you love another man. That you never really felt complete with me. That I was too logical, too steady, too boring for you. Why would I fight to keep someone who doesn't want to be kept? I do want to be with you. I'm confused. I made a mistake. I know I did. But we have 15 years together. We have children. We have a whole life. I corrected. We had a life. You destroyed it. And honestly, Camilla, I don't think you love me. I don't think you love Matthew either. I think you love the attention, the excitement, the drama of it all. And I'm done being part of your drama. She started crying again, but this time I stood up. I'm going to call my lawyer. I suggest you do the same. I'll sleep on the couch tonight. We'll figure out how to tell the kids together, but I want honesty this time. No more lies. Leon, please. There's nothing left to say. You made your choices. Now we both have to live with them. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her there with her tears and her regrets, and the pregnancy test still sitting on the table between us like a tombstone for our marriage. The next week passed in a blur of painful logistics. True to her word, Camilla had the abortion. She didn't ask for my support, didn't want me there. She just did it, and came home pale and quiet and retreated to our bedroom. I didn't know how to feel about it. Sad? Relieved? Angry? Maybe all three. I called my lawyer friend Jack on Monday morning. We'd known each other since high school, had stayed close through the years. He was a divorce attorney now, successful and sharp. When I told him I needed to see him urgently, he cleared his afternoon schedule. Sitting in his downtown office with its view of Manhattan, I laid out everything. The affair, the surveillance, the pregnancy, all of it. Jack listened without interruption, taking notes, his expression growing grimmer as the story unfolded. Christ, Leon, he said when I finished. I'm sorry. That's rough. Can I win? I asked bluntly. In a divorce, can I win? Jack leaned back in his chair. New York is technically a no-fault divorce state. You don't need to prove wrongdoing to get divorced. But adultery absolutely matters when it comes to custody, asset division, and spousal support. With the evidence you have, the surveillance, the deleted messages, the pattern of lies, you're in a strong position. I want primary custody of the kids. That's reasonable, given the circumstances. Her behavior shows poor judgment. A judge will consider that. And the apartment? It's a rental, right? Whose name is on the lease? Both of ours. Then we'll need to negotiate. But again, with evidence of her infidelity and the fact that stable housing for the children is paramount, you've got leverage. What about her business? Jack paused. That's trickier. It's her business, her clients, her work. But if you can prove that you contributed significantly, financially, through connections, through support that allowed her to build it, you might have a claim to some of the assets. I don't want her business, I said. I just want her to face consequences. Real consequences. Jack looked at me carefully. Revenge is expensive, Leon. Emotionally and financially. Are you sure that's the path you want? I thought about Camilla's words in the kitchen. About feeling wanted, feeling young, chasing excitement. About how she'd never really loved me the way she loved Matthew. About 15 years of my life invested in a lie. I'm sure, I said. Over the next few days, I gathered everything Jack requested. Bank statements, credit card records, emails, text message logs. Hank provided official documentation of his surveillance, including timestamps, photos, and location data. Jack compiled it all into a devastating case file. We told the kids on a Sunday evening. Sat them down in the living room, both of us present, trying to maintain some united front even though everything between us was shattered. Chelsea looked between us, her face already showing she knew what was coming. Our son just looked confused, swinging his legs from the couch, too young to fully understand. Your mom and I need to talk to you about something important, I started. You're getting divorced, Chelsea said flatly. Not a question. A statement. Is Mom seeing someone else? She asked. 13 years old, and already too perceptive. I didn't answer directly. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big ones. What kind of mistakes? Chelsea pushed. She wanted the truth, deserved the truth. That's between your mom and me, I said gently. But I want you both to know that this isn't your fault. Nothing you did caused this. And both of us love you very much. That will never change. Chelsea was staring at her mother now, and I saw something terrible in her eyes. Understanding. She'd figured it out, or at least part of it. Our son looked between his sister and mother, starting to cry even though he didn't fully understand why. She ran to her room, slamming the door. Our son climbed into my lap, crying. Camilla just sat there, tears streaming down her face, looking broken. This was what betrayal looked like. Not just between spouses, but between parent and child. Chelsea might forgive her mother eventually, but she'd never forget. Never fully trust her again. The divorce proceedings began in February. The winter that had seemed merely cold before now felt brutal, unforgiving. I'd wake up on the couch. I'd been sleeping there since the confrontation, and lie there listening to the apartment come alive. The kids getting ready for school. Camilla moving around quietly, avoiding me. The sounds of a family that was no longer a family. Jack filed the papers, and Camilla hired her own attorney. A woman named Patricia who had a reputation for being aggressive. I'd expected that. Camilla might have made terrible choices, but she wasn't stupid. She'd fight for what she could get. The first hearing was procedural, just establishing the basics. But walking into that courtroom, seeing Camilla sitting on the opposite side with her lawyer, made everything surreally real. This was happening. We were really ending. She tried to approach me during a recess. "Leon, please. Can we talk? Really talk?" "That's what lawyers are for," I said. "I don't mean about legal stuff. I mean about us. About what happened. There is no us anymore, Camilla. You made sure of that. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices. But did 15 years really mean so little that you can just throw it all away?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "I'm not throwing it away. You already did that. I'm just acknowledging reality. I ended things with Matthew," she said suddenly. "After you found out, I told him it was over. Congratulations. You want a medal for stopping your affair after you got caught. I'm trying to show you that I choose you. That I choose our family. You didn't choose us when it mattered. You chose him. Every Thursday for months, you chose him. Don't pretend now that you're making some noble sacrifice." Her lawyer called her back, and she walked away. I felt nothing. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody, including me, saw coming. During one of the later hearings in March, focused on asset division and custody, there was a disruption. The bailiff announced an unexpected witness. The judge looked annoyed. This hadn't been scheduled. Matthew walked into the courtroom. Camilla's face went white. Her lawyer looked confused. Jack glanced at me, equally puzzled. I had no idea what was happening. Matthew was sworn in. He looked nervous but determined. Well-dressed in a suit, every inch the successful real estate agent. But there was something else in his expression. Anger. "Mr. Harrison," the judge said, "you've requested to provide testimony. Please explain your relevance to these proceedings." "Your Honor, I was involved in an affair with Mrs. Camila Rodriguez. The affair that's central to this divorce." The courtroom went silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a moment. "I see," the judge said. "And what is it you wish to testify about?" "About Mrs. Rodriguez's character. About her pattern of deception. About what she told me versus what she told her husband." Camilla's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. "I'll allow it. This goes to credibility and character, which is relevant in custody determinations. Proceed." What came next was devastating. Matthew testified that Camilla had approached him first at that coffee shop, not the other way around. That she'd told him her marriage was already over. That she and I were just staying together for the kids until she could figure out logistics. That she'd been planning to leave me for months before they even started the affair. She told me her husband was cold, emotionally distant, that he cared more about his lab work than his family. She painted herself as trapped in a loveless marriage, just waiting for the right moment to escape. I listened to this, numb. Had she really said those things about me? "When did you learn this wasn't true?" Jack asked during cross-examination. "When she got pregnant," Matthew said. "She told me about it, and I was happy. I thought we were starting our life together. Then she told me she was getting an abortion. I asked her why, if she was really leaving her husband anyway. And she admitted that she wasn't leaving, that she'd never planned to leave, that I was just someone to pass the time with." He looked directly at Camilla. I realized then that everything she'd told me was a lie, that she'd used me the same way she'd betrayed her husband. I was just as much a fool as him. The judge took it all in. When Camilla tried to refute his testimony, she couldn't. Because it was true. All of it. After Matthew left the stand, Camilla was called to testify. Under oath, she had to admit things she'd never admitted to me. That yes, she'd initiated contact with Matthew. That yes, she'd lied to him about planning to leave me. That yes, she'd gotten pregnant and had an abortion without consulting either of us. The judge's ruling came 2 weeks later. I got primary custody of the kids, with Camilla getting supervised visitation every other weekend until she could demonstrate stability and appropriate judgment. The apartment lease was transferred entirely to my name. The business assets were divided, but in a way that favored me. The judge noted that many of Camilla's clients had come through my professional connections and that her behavior had shown reckless disregard for her family's welfare. But that wasn't the real punishment. The real punishment came from something I hadn't engineered, hadn't planned, hadn't even anticipated. The truth spread. See, Camilla's entire business was built on her image. The devoted wife and mother who poured love into every cake. Her social media was full of family photos, heartwarming stories about baking with the kids, posts about how her happy marriage inspired her creations. Her clients paid premium prices because they believed they were buying into that story. After the divorce was finalized, I didn't have to say anything. The truth spread on its own through our community in Queens. Her clients started asking questions. Some confronted her directly. Her carefully curated image crumbled like a poorly made cake. Within 6 months, her business had dried up. She'd lost her credibility, her client base, her reputation. She had to take a job at a regular bakery, working for minimum wage plus tips, making standard sheet cakes for strangers. Matthew wanted nothing to do with her after the trial. He'd bought into the fantasy she was selling, and when it fell apart, he moved on quickly. Last I heard, he was dating someone new, someone honest. Camilla tried to rebuild her relationship with the kids, but they weren't interested. Chelsea especially couldn't forgive her mother for what she'd done to our family. Our son was younger, more confused than angry, but even he pulled away. My life moved forward. The kids and I created new routines, new traditions. Chelsea started therapy and was doing better. Our son joined a basketball team and found joy in that. I focused on my work and being present for them in ways I maybe hadn't been before, too comfortable in my old life to realize what I had. I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate or dramatic. It's simply letting someone face the natural consequences of their choices. Camilla destroyed her own life. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. She'd gambled everything, her marriage, her family, her business, her reputation, for an affair that meant nothing to either person involved. And she lost it all. As for me, I'm still here in Queens with my kids, still working as a chemist, still moving forward. Some nights are harder than others. Sometimes I wonder if I missed warning signs earlier, if I could have prevented this. But mostly I'm grateful. Grateful I found out when I did. Grateful I have my children. Grateful I'm free from a marriage built on lies. The snow is falling outside my window right now, covering Queens in white. The kids are in their rooms doing homework. I'm making dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs. It's simple and honest, and that's enough. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.